Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com and the Pewter Report podcast. Happy Tuesday to everybody. Hello to the Pewter people that are just filing in as we get set for another episode of this weekly podcast. Today, we're going to continue to talk about greatness with the Buccaneers franchise as we will discuss who's next for the Bucs Ring of Honor. They already got a pretty impressive and talented list so far, and there are a handful of candidates that could be next to see their name enshrined in the Bucs Ring of Honor. We're going to break down a number of players on today's show. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is the face that runs the place at pewterreport.com, SR Scott Reynolds. Scott, I am a big fan of your outfit today, and how's it going?
Doing well. I see we both got the memo. It's Black Pewter Report shirt day. So we're looking forward to Bucs training camp, obviously. But we're kind of filling in some of the days leading up to training camp right now with some interesting topics. Because really, once football gets going, Matt, we're going to be wall-to-wall with the happenings in training camp, any injury news that comes out, any signings that occur. And then we're going to get right into
who's playing well,
who's playing well,
like everything.
Yeah, the preseason games, the regular season, etc. So it's fun to hit on some of these topics during the summer just because we don't have any football to watch right now. But let's talk about some guys that played an awful lot of football in Tampa Bay. And one of them may be in the Bucs Ring of Honor this year. The Buccaneers did not commit to bringing anybody into the Bucs Ring of Honor this year, but they didn't do it last year. And so something tells me they might do that this year. Last year, they had Rondé Barber being recognized for the Hall of Fame. He got inducted into the Hall of Fame in August. And then during the Monday night game against the Eagles, Barber was given his Ring of Honor ring. They actually give you a gold jacket, and then they have a ceremony at the stadium where they give you your Hall of Fame ring. So Rondé Barber got the gold jacket in Canton, got the ring at the halftime of the Bucs-Eagles game, which was unfortunately a loss. But I had a funny feeling, though, that they're going to bring back the Ring of Honor with the new inductee this year. And, Matt, there's a lot of candidates that I think are still worthy that are out there.
Oh, absolutely so. And candidates from, like, generations of Bucs football, too, not just, like, the most recent successful teams and things like that. And obviously, there's a certain quarterback that we'll be talking about a lot. And I'm actually fine with the fact that the Bucs did the Rondé ceremony last year and they didn't induct someone new into the Ring of Honor because, these are special occasions. I don't think these should be rushed. I don't think they should do it just to say, hey, we're putting someone into the Bucs Ring of Honor. Right. Like, I don't think it should be like, we need an extra event. So, hey, let's induct this person into the Ring of Honor. I think that's a little hollow. That doesn't, exactly ring true about, someone who could be very important and worthy of the Bucs Ring of Honor. So I was fine that they didn't do it last year. I don't think it's necessarily something that has to be done every single season. But with that said, I mean, there are a number of names that we've written down that Pewter Report has written about as well, And so there are a handful of candidates from the most recent Super Bowl team, the first Super Bowl winning team, and in between and before that as well. So I don't know what direction you want to start with, Scott. We can go quarterback.
Well, let's do this. Let's say if the Bucs are going to induct someone this year, Matt, who do you think it's going to be? Not maybe who you want it to be or who you would campaign for it to be, but who do you think the team will induct into the Bucs Hall of Fame this year if there is an induction indeed?
That's a good question in of itself. I know Josh Capo wrote about this, but I agree with him tenfold. I honestly think it should be Gene Deckerhoff, the infamous radio broadcaster for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, you can't watch a highlight and see the Bucs score a touchdown and not at least think in your head, touchdown Tampa Bay, fire the cannons. I mean, countless people have done Gene Deckerhoff impressions. I know T. Kras on The Drive on WDAE. He does a pretty good Gene Deckerhoff impression. Yeah, and I just think it's important to also honor people while they're still with us. Obviously Deckerhoff's up there in age. He was going to retire like 2 seasons ago, and I'm glad he didn't retire because I still think he's fantastic at what he does. And obviously, this is kind of coming off the heels of the passing of Monty Kiffin, who we spoke about on yesterday's show. And it was great that he did get to go into the Ring of Honor and have a speech and speak to the fans, at least publicly, for one last time. So I think Gene Deckerhoff, it would be great because obviously, nobody knows Bucks history like him. He's been doing it for years, and he's up there in age for sure. But I think, I've seen other sports teams. It really doesn't matter what league induct certain people, and especially broadcasters, while they're still doing the job. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And obviously, Bruce Arians got inducted a couple seasons ago, and that was fantastic. There wasn't really like a waiting period for that. So I really think Gene Deckerhoff should probably be the next Bucks, not a player, but someone in the Bucks community and franchise that should go in, just kind of based on all the factors that I just laid out.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And you kind of changed my mind a little bit because now I'm on the Deckerhoff bandwagon, just because I do believe that it means more when you actually have the person alive and well to kind of get their flowers, right? To get that moment. And I think that's important. And we all have an expiration date. We don't know when it is, right? Only the creator knows, in terms of when we're going to leave this world and transition to whatever's next. And so, when you look at the elderly gentlemen that have recently been inducted, Monty Kiffin just passed away last Thursday. He was inducted a couple years ago. Same with Bruce Arians, thankfully still alive, but getting up there in age as well. And then you can have an instance like Leroy Selman, who passed away suddenly, I believe, in his 50s. So you never really know, right? And even like the tragic loss of Kyrie Jackson, whose NFL career was over before it began, right? The Minnesota Vikings rookie cornerback. So with that being said, I'm definitely for putting Gene Deckerhoff in. And I'm not usually a fan of doing 2 in 1 year. The Buccaneers have done that in the past. They put in Mike Allstott the same year that they put in Doug Williams. I'm not really a fan of that because I think each person deserves their own year. Like, for example, Malcolm Glazier went in posthumously. Obviously, Malcolm had passed the same year that John Gruden did. And so that kind of made a lot of sense because Malcolm Glazier traded for John Gruden. They won the franchise's first Super Bowl together. Malcolm Glazier was alive for that, but wasn't alive at the time where he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, or I should say the Ring of Honor. So, I'm in favor of that. I would say this year, though, my choice would be to have Gene Deckerhoff go in for one of those games, but also to have Tom Brady go in this year. And I think it sets up really well for a couple of reasons. Number one, when you look at Brady, he is going to be Fox's number one announcer this year. Who knows how long he'll do this? He's in a contract, I think, for 10 years. He may decide to do this 1 year. It may go well. He may want to continue. It may not. He may decide not to do it. But he may be involved in other things where he may not be back around to Raymond James Stadium for a while. But if he's here in the building calling a game, and I believe he's going to be calling the Bucs 49ers game in week 10, I think that that's the perfect opportunity to have him come down at halftime and get his name on the side of Raymond James Stadium forever, because you talk about the Ring of Honor. To me, Ring of Honor inductees, they have to accomplish a couple of things to get this. And we'll talk about some candidates later in the show who, maybe in the Ring of kind of honor or
Hall of Very Good.
Hall of Very Good, right? As opposed to, the Buccaneers Ring of Greatness, because that's really what the Ring of Honor is. But when you look at Brady, very short career, but wow, did he accomplish so much. Set personal records, passing yards, passing touchdowns, won a Super Bowl, was the only quarterback to make the playoffs every single year he was under center in Tampa. Plus, he's the greatest of all time. So there's just so many reasons why Brady gets in, even though he only made one Pro Bowl in Tampa Bay, Matt, which is kind of funny, right? Just the Pro Bowl in 2021 during that season. But I mean, the best record in franchise history, 13-4 during the 2021 season. To me, Tom Brady, because he has already been inducted into the Patriots Ring of Honor. They did that this summer, anticipating he's not going to be calling a Patriots game this year because they suck. So
Yeah.
they did the right thing and said, "Hey, Tom, before you get too busy, we're going to go ahead and put you in our Ring of Honor." But now that that's already happened, and I think that would have been maybe a roadblock for Brady to say, I really appreciate that, Joel and Brian and Darcy and Ed, but I really can't get in your Ring of Honor until I get in the Patriots Ring of Honor, because I only won one
Yeah.
Super Bowl with you guys, and I won like 6 with the other team. So I think that now that hurdle has been jumped, I believe Tom Brady would be an awesome addition to the Bucs Ring of Honor this year. And is he going to be leapfrogging a couple of other players we're going to talk about? Yeah, he is. But he's also Tom Brady, and I think that you want him in your
Right.
stadium as soon as possible, just because he is such an iconic player. And he's going to be in the Hall of Fame in just a couple of years, since he recently retired. So why not put him in your Ring of Honor before he gets in the Hall of Fame? So at least you have that claim to fame as well as an organization.
All very valid points, Scott. And I was the one that wrote about Tom Brady when we did this PR roundtable a couple weeks ago about who should be in the Bucs Ring of Honor. And to me, like, I was talking about this last week on a show with Bailey Adams was on, and we were talking about why Tom Brady is qualified. And I could not believe the amount of people, like, if you want to argue Tom Brady shouldn't be the direct next Bucs personnel to be in, fine, that's a fair argument. But there were people out there saying that Tom Brady should not be in the Bucs Ring of Honor at all. And my question to that, outside of just wondering how asinine of a statement that is, if Tom Brady isn't good enough for the Bucs Ring of Honor, what is the criteria for a quarterback to be in the Bucs Ring of Honor? Because you mentioned some of the records, Scott. Let's remember, Tom Brady played here 3 seasons.
Right.
He is first in single season passing touchdowns with 43 in 2021, which, let's face it, Brady could have won the MVP that year. He could have won MVP. Second on the Bucs single season passing touchdown list is also Tom Brady when he had 40 in his first year during COVID with the Buccaneers as well.
Right.
So,
and by the way, Kyler Murray beat him out for a Pro Bowl spot in 2020.
Right.
What? Come on.
Yeah, I know. Makes no sense at all whatsoever. Passing yards, he's first and third in single season records. For career, he's third on the Bucs all-time list. Again, Jameis Winston played 5 years, and Vinny Testaverde played several years as well. And Brady's still second all-time in career passing touchdowns just for the Buccaneers, not even with anything that he did with the Patriots. Oh, and also, he's the all-time leader in playoff wins with the Buccaneers at quarterback. So if all those stats I just laid out don't qualify him for the Bucs Ring of Honor, forget the fact that he only played 3 seasons for the Bucs, then who gets in? Who gets in? Because I just don't understand that. Then you add in, the importance of him in Tampa with making the Bucs relevant, making people care about the Buccaneers from a national standpoint. I think that's super important to really this whole, argument and discussion of things of all that nature. Now, the whole getting in, having to wait for the Patriots, I do agree with you. I think there's a good window between now and when Tom gets into the Hall of Fame. Because let's face it, Brady is still going to be, except for in the Tampa community, Brady's going to be talked about as a Patriot. We saw at the roast, it was all Patriots people and Levante David chilling in the back.
Right.
When it comes time for Tom
Ryan
Brady
Jensen.
to go, and Ryan Jensen and Rashad Perriman. We can't forget Rashad Perriman being there. But when it comes time for his Hall of Fame, the speech and induction, obviously he's going to mention the Buccaneers. But there's going to be tons of questions about his time with the Patriots. And for every 10 Patriots questions, there's probably going to be 2 or 3 Bucs questions.
Right.
I hate to say it, but that's just the reality of what it's going to be.
20 years in one spot,
20
3
years
years in
3.
another.
Exactly. So I think there's a good window to put Tom in now where he can kind of soak in his time with the Bucs and then kind of get back to all the Patriot stuff later on when the Hall of Fame goes on. Also, I think it's also good to have Brady go in earlier. So when like the 50-year anniversary comes up, if you want
Yes.
to add someone in that maybe has a little more tie to just a longer playing time in Tampa or living in the
Right.
community, I think it'd be better to have like more of an old school person or someone that was here a little bit longer than Brady that was just like, hey, I'm just
Yeah.
stopping by. We're going to do great things while I'm
Right.
here, but I'm just stopping by for a little bit.
No, I think you're exactly right. I think you make some fantastic points, and yeah, next year is going to be that 50th year, and so why not go back into the history books and grab maybe an older player that has had to wait their time and their turn and induct them then next year when it might be even a little bit more appropriate. So I'm with you on that. I think that's a great one. We have a super chat from Redfish. Always appreciate you, Mark Fisher. Thank you so much. As long as you've covered the Bucks, SR, do you know what's keeping Hardy Nickerson off the Ring of Honor? You don't have to say, but was it free agency or is it personal? No, I don't think that there's anything personal that has kept Hardy Nickerson out of the Bucks Ring of Honor. Let's remember, not only did Hardy Nickerson play in Tampa Bay, help kind of turn
Yes.
the franchise around. He was not only a huge free agent signing in 1993 by the Buccaneers when they got him in Plan B free agency from the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he was also Tony Dungy's big first re-signing because that was a huge thing in 1996 when Dungy came. They had to re-sign Hardy Nickerson. And so Tony Dungy was probably showing Hardy, hey, you played for the Steelers. I played for the Steelers.
Yeah.
You played middle linebacker. I need a middle linebacker. Let's keep you in Tampa. So that was a huge deal back in 1996, keeping Hardy Nickerson. So he played, helped turn the franchise around from the Buccaneers to the Buccaneers, took them to the NFC Championship game in 1999. Really was that first leader that kind of set the way for John Lynch and Derek Brooks and Warren Sapp up front. And then he also worked in the booth with Gene Deckerhoff. So he worked for Bucs Radio Network as the color analyst for, I believe, a season or two. Then he came back to Tampa as a linebackers coach under Lovie Smith, who was his linebackers coach in Tampa under Tony Dungy. So Nickerson has played for the Buccaneers, worked for the Buccaneers Radio Network, and then came back and coached with the Buccaneers. So to me, I don't think there's anything really that is preventing the Buccaneers from having him in there, other than there's just maybe been some more qualified candidates. Hardy Nickerson was a multi-year Pro Bowler for the Buccaneers, and still has a franchise record in terms of 214 tackles. Yeah, in 1993, which was his first year in Tampa, and that actually set a franchise record for single season tackles that has stood today. Derek Brooks hasn't come close to it. Levante David hasn't come close to it. And also that was the top tackle amount in the league that year. So Hardy Nickerson, in my opinion, definitely deserves some consideration for what he's done. And you look at the fact that he made the Pro Bowl in 93, he made the Pro Bowl in 96, 97, 98, and 99. That's a five-time Pro Bowler. He was an All-Pro in 97 when the Buccaneers finally made the playoffs after over a decade of being without a playoff berth, and then also made the All-Pro team in 93 when he landed in Tampa with those 214 tackles. So I think he certainly has the resume. He was on a playoff team that actually two of them in 97 and 99 that both won in the postseason and advanced. So I think there's a lot to like about Hardy Nickerson's candidacy. He was really one of the first favorite Buccaneers that I had the chance to cover when I came to town in 1995. And I just really appreciated his leadership, his energy. He was nicknamed El Dragon and also Hardware. He would flex for the crowd and get everybody fired up. So I don't think there's anything keeping him out, other than the fact that there's just maybe been some more worthy candidates that have gotten in. But I think he's in the next three. I think Brady, Simeon Rice, Hardy Nickerson. I think those three probably have the biggest opportunity. And then you throw Deckerhoff in there. So, okay, maybe he's in the next four to get in.
Yeah, so he might not be a first ballot Bucs Ring of Honor
Right.
member, but it doesn't mean that he shouldn't be in the Bucs Ring of Honor. I mean, you said the 214 tackles in one season. That's insane. Like,
Yeah.
it's utterly insane to think about that he got 214 tackles in one season. He's also fourth all time in tackles for the Bucs. I believe fourth or fifth, and he's
Yeah.
the only Bucs player in that top five in tackles that was on the team for less than a decade. So
Yeah.
talk about the production that he had. I mean, he still spent what 7 years, 8 years with the Bucs. So it wasn't like
Yeah.
it was just a brief time. But
Right.
I think when you add up the single season individual awards, making several Pro Bowls, and then
Yeah.
what you mentioned with being in the booth and being a coach as well, a lot of people care about, again, importance to the team and impacting it in several ways. Like there
Yeah.
are many athletes that play for a team and then go on to be a broadcaster
Right.
as well, or a coach in this case. So I think that really helps out. I think having a long sustaining career, even though it wasn't all just with the Buccaneers,
Yeah.
is important. And I think in a way he can kind of be viewed in how Tony Dungy is viewed as, yeah, maybe he didn't win a championship with the Bucs,
Exactly.
but Hardy Nickerson really helped set the tone for what would
Right.
be that championship winning defense. Unfortunately, he wasn't on the team to,
Yeah. I like that
enjoy the fruits of the
comparison.
labor. But, like if they did it for Dungy, why not do it for Hardy
Right.
Nickerson as well?
No, I think you're spot on. That's a fantastic analogy. And I'll say this: when Dungy was fired, he was the Bucks' all-time winningest coach. He had 54
Yeah.
wins, right? And then of course, when he hit that mark, he got fired. So it stalled at 54. John Gruden actually beat Dungy out, and I think he coached one more year. So he had one more year to beat Dungy, and he did. He had 57 wins before he got fired. So when Dungy left, he was the best coach in franchise history, most winning coach as well. When Hardy Nickerson left the Buccaneers, he was the best linebacker in Bucs history, bar none. He was the best.
Yeah.
Now it's Derek Brooks. And I think Levante David has surpassed Hardy as number 2 on that
Yes.
list. So you've got
I
Brooks,
would agree.
and then you've got Levante David, then you've got Hardy Nickerson, and probably Shelton Quarles after that. So
Yeah.
I think there's certainly a lot of argument to be made there for that. As Rev Fish also says, Hardy got Keith McCants kicked out for his lack of work ethic, and that's true. Keith McCants, former first round pick, was kind of a bust. He came here injured and never really became the player he was, the dominant player that he was at Alabama, and that work ethic. The thing is, Tampa Bay was such there was such malaise in the Buccaneer organization that even if you were a good player in college, you got drafted here. It's kind of like Washington, D.C. It's like you go there with good intentions to be a good politician. The swamp just kind of gets you, And so it's kind of like, that's just how the Buccaneers were. It's like you came to the Buccaneers to suck. That's just what you did. And so, but it took enough people to make a stand. And Hardy was one of those guys saying, no more, we're not going to do this. And so then it's like when John Lynch comes in 93, he's looking at Hardy and saying, okay, this guy really wants to win. I'm going to join his team instead of being on the loser squad with the Eric Currys and the Keith McCants and all that. Then this team drafts Derek Brooks and Warren Sapp, and now there's a couple more guys. It's like the Avengers are assembling, right? It's, what I'm saying? And so it's
he's like Nick Fury a little bit.
Exactly. I like that comparison. That's great. So I think that's kind of what he was. And then you take a coach like Tony Dungy, who marries up with Hardy Nickerson, and he's like, yeah, I came from Minnesota where we won a lot. I was a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Yeah.
We won a lot. I came here to win, not just to, collect a check and try to make a name for myself. And so it was a perfect storm at the perfect time, and it all came together. And Hardy Nickerson was a vital role in all of that happening.
Yeah, you need those culture changers, whether it was Dungy and Hardy Nickerson at the time or Bruce Arians when he came in, and then obviously getting Tom Brady a season later. Let me get your thoughts on this, Scott, because I think putting Hardy in, I think would be important as well, because with the exception of James Wilder, who we can talk about as well, say they want to do Wilder and Hardy Nickerson.
I love that combination for next year.
Like, whether it's same season or, next year and the year after or whatever it may be. I think it finally closes the book on anything that old school Bucs fans would say about this person should be in, this person should be in.
I agree.
If those two players go in, it kind of closes the book. And not that we wouldn't reminisce about it or anything like that,
Right.
but there's nobody else from those creamsicle days, from pretty much the pre-Super Bowl winning days, that someone could say, we're forgetting about that person because they weren't as successful or whatever it may be. So
Right.
I almost feel like, not that you just want to do it to appease the fans, even though, it is entertainment business.
Yeah.
I think if you put in Nickerson and James Wilder, or you do something to kind of honor them, it closes that chapter of it. There's no other arguments. Like, everybody from the early creamsicle era is in.
I agree.
Obviously, now we can focus on the first Super Bowl winning team and then eventually focus on the second Super Bowl winning team. So I think it'd be a nice way to end a chapter.
So here, Cali Buck says, I've seen you say this, are we putting 50 names in the Ring of Honor? Or what are we doing? Keep in mind, I know that the east side of the stadium is getting a little full right now, but they have the entire west side of the stadium too, which, that's, you don't see that side because the TV cameras are on the west side shooting east. The press box where Matt and I sit and the Pewter reporters, it's on the west side of the stadium. So you don't see the west side in terms of the TV vantage point, but it's still there. It's still in the stadium. It looks just like the east side, except there's no names on it yet. So there's plenty of room to put in some great names. And the great thing is, Matt, we had this conversation 10 years ago. We'd be sitting there saying like who else could go in? James Wilder and Hardy and Simeon, and that's it, right?
Right.
Now we're talking about Tom Brady, Levante David's on the horizon. Mike Evans is on the horizon. Tristan Wirfs has that trajectory. I think Jason Light, you make a case for him being the first general manager to go in, right? Yeah. Antoine Winfield Jr. Yeah. So now all of a sudden, boom, you win a Super Bowl, and there's a lot more names to choose from, just because this team has leveled up in terms of the talent,
right?
Especially over the last decade.
Yeah, I kind of wish, I'm not even talking about the Bucs, I'm talking about teams in general. There could be a way to differentiate between like retiring the number and putting the name on the stadium and just having a player in the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? Because like Derek Brooks, his name should be on the stadium. Hardy Nickerson should be in the Bucs Hall of Fame, but like, does he need his name on the stadium for the rest of the time? I don't necessarily know. I've always wondered that as well, because eventually, as time goes on, teams are just going to run out of space unless like you don't have any good players anymore. Yeah. Like the Yankees, I don't know how they do it. They have 1,000 numbers retired. Right. Like eventually you're going to run out of room, but it'll probably be like 1,000 years from now, and it won't be a concern of ours. I have wondered that though. Yeah. But I also don't think there's anything wrong with celebrating greatness in your franchise. Yeah. Like why should we turn a blind eye to it? It's so difficult to be a good player in the NFL. We've seen how tough it is for Rondé Barber just to get into the Hall of Fame. There's some guys that aren't going to get into the Hall of Fame but can be celebrated by the organization, like, I don't know, Simeon Rice, then that's right. I think, why not celebrate them? Yeah.
Redfish with another super chat. Thanks so much, Mark. We appreciate your contributions. Throwing some more names onto the pile of Buccaneers, Alvin Harper and Charles McCray. I will say this, Alvin Harper was a turd. He just was. Like, you wanted to flush the guy. He just was a bad dude. Charles McCray, though, former first-round pick, offensive tackle out of Tennessee, was a bust. He didn't really pan out. He wasn't as good as all that. And I think the Buccaneers scouting department wasn't really great, back in the 80s and the early part of the 90s. And with Charles McCray, the reason why that was a miss was because he didn't love football. He loved computers. Computers were kind of like a new thing in the 90s, right? Yeah. And he kind of loved tinkering with computers, and he was kind of a computer nerd. And that was really his passion. He was good at football, paid the bills, but he didn't love football. And so I think that's where Jason Light does a tremendous job. That was one of John Gruden's, biggest things, are you a player or a playa, right? I want players. I don't want a guy that just wants to wear the Pewter Report shirt, Matt, that's what he would say. He's like, I want somebody who wants to be a Pewter reporter, right? He wanted Buccaneer players. He wanted guys that loved the game. And I think whether you're Tony Dungy, whether you're John Gruden, whether you're Jason Light, you look for those guys that have a passion for what they do. almost like the people at Celsius. Their passion for creating new
Oh,
flavors is unparalleled. And if you're looking for the essential energy, Matt, I'm sure you're going to tell us where we can get it.
yes, of course. There's so many great flavors of Celsius. You hear us talking about the vibes all the time with the Astro Cosmic and Galaxy. Tropical's great too. And of course, I'm a huge fan of the Arctic vibe. There's no sugar in Celsius energy drinks, and they're gluten free as well. So, maybe if you want to kickstart your morning and you want something a little bit different than coffee, try out a Celsius. It's absolutely fantastic. So, if you need to know where to find a Celsius energy drink, head on over to the Celsius website. They have a store locator where you could punch in your address and it'll tell you the closest location where you could pick one up. Might be your local Walmart, a health and fitness store, or Target, or your bodega.
Bodega.
And after you've tried Celsius and you love it and you want more and you want to buy it in bulk, you can buy it in bulk. And I'd strongly recommend doing it today because you can get it on Amazon.
Yes,
and it is
I just
Prime
bought some.
Day. Happy Prime Day to everybody.
Yeah.
So go to Amazon, click on that subscribe and save. I'd recommend purchasing the variety pack of Celsius because there's so many great flavors and variety is the spice of life. So set it up on Amazon, have it sent to your place of residence whenever you want. You're in charge. You're the captain. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, let's do this. Let's give Simeon Rice his due because he is due. He's long overdue for the Bucs Ring of Honor. I think
Yes.
you can say what you want about Tom Brady. You can say what you want about Hardy Nickerson. We talked about Gene Deckerhoff. Those are three viable candidates that obviously deserve to go in, I think. And I think, Matt, you agree. But there's a guy that's been waiting a little bit longer than most. And he won a Super Bowl before Tom Brady even thought about coming to Tampa Bay. Of course, we're talking about the sack master, Simeon Rice. Now, this guy was a force, and as good as Warren Sapp and Derek Brooks were in that defensive front, guys like Chidi Hanatu and Brad Culpepper, they didn't get the job done until Simeon Rice showed up. And he came to Tampa Bay in free agency in 2021. I'm sorry, not 2021, 2001. And then in 2002, he helped the Bucs win the Super Bowl. He had an all-pro season in 2002, 15 and a half sacks, had 15 sacks the next year. He was a back-to-back Pro Bowler in 2002 and 2003 and just wreaked havoc in the Super Bowl. Had, I believe, 2 sacks out of the 5 on Rich Gannon and a forced fumble. Could have been the MVP of that game. He was so disruptive. And really, he was that outside guy with Sapp being on the inside and really just became a 1-2 punch up front that just helped the Buccaneers defense become number 1 in 2002, not just in yards allowed, but also points scored. And just a tremendous Buccaneer player, 69 and a half sacks in 6 years in Tampa Bay. So he averaged double-digit sacks, right? And when you look at the numbers he put up, he did succumb to a shoulder injury at age 32 in the 2006 season, which cut that season short, where he only had 2 sacks. If you take that out, these are Simeon Rice's sack numbers upon entering Tampa Bay in 2001. 11 sacks, 15 and a half sacks in 2002. 2003, 15 sacks. 2004, he had 12 sacks. 2005, he had 14 sacks. And it wasn't just the sacks, Matt. It was also the forced fumbles. He had 6 forced fumbles in the 2003 season, which led the entire league. He also had 6 forced fumbles in 2005 as well, and 4 forced fumbles. Despite only having 2 sacks and despite only playing in 8 games in 2006. So he ended up with 19 forced fumbles in those seasons in Tampa Bay. Just an incredible player.
No doubt about it. I mean, to play 6 seasons for the Bucs and you end up 3rd all time in career sacks when, the 2 guys ahead of you played for much longer in Tampa Bay, 69 and a half sacks in 6 seasons. I mean, you said sack master. I mean, it makes total sense. I mean, just the epitome of consistency year in and year out. I mean, except for that last year in 06, when obviously was much later in his career, you could just sign him up for 11 sacks, like on a season.
Yeah.
And, obviously the game has changed and sometimes it's a little bit tougher to, come to a new spot and really start producing right away. That was not the case at all for Simeon Rice, getting 11 in 2001 and just improved every single
Yes.
year. I mean, you pointed out 2002 and 2003. I know we did a show recently where, we want to take former Bucs and put them on the current team. If we were drafting it, Simeon Rice might be like my number one pick. If the Bucs could get him today and have him play outside linebacker. I really enjoyed the story you told too about just watching him after 2-a-day practices in the dead heat in the summer of Florida, just going and sprinting after practice as well to
It was incredible.
keep his cardio up and just never got tired. I mean, he really is a one-of-a-kind type of player, and it is a shame he's not in the Hall of Fame. I think his production and like Simeon Rice, I think is more of a guy that would pass the eye test of a Hall of Famer than necessarily the statistics. And he does have really good statistics too. It just shows how hard it is to get into the Hall of Fame. If he's unfortunately going to get snubbed, and never say never, just let's face it, the odds aren't looking great. He should at least be in the Bucs Ring of Honor. Like,
there's no doubt.
The Bucs can control putting him in the Ring of Honor. They can only do so much to get him into the Hall of Fame.
Correct. And I think the thing too is when you look at the fact that Simeon Rice, he's going to have to get in the Bucs Ring of Honor before he really has a Hall of Fame case, because that'll be the first disqualifier. And that's something that I've had conversations with Ira Kaufman about. And they're like,
yep,
if the Bucs really want him in, they got to put him in the Ring of Honor, because I'm going to go into, meaning Ira Kaufman, he's going to go in as the presenter in the Hall of Fame voting committee. And, and that's going to be one of the first questions they ask him. Well, why should he be in the Hall of Fame? He's not even in the team's Ring of Honor. So that has to happen first. And it's not to say that he can't be a candidate that happens later. We just saw DeMarcus Ware go in this past year, right? And he's been out of football for quite some time now. So there's still a chance for Simeon. I don't think it happens. Ira Kaufman doesn't think it's going to happen necessarily, because the Bucs have 4 players off that 2002 Super Bowl team. But if he's going to have any legitimate shot, he's got to be in the Ring of Honor first. And that's why I think he should be one of the next ones to go in. So I think we've talked about 4 absolute surefire guys that without a doubt you and I agree on, from Gene Deckerhoff to Tom Brady to Hardy Nickerson to Simeon Rice. And then I think maybe the next guy that you and I probably agree on, maybe I'm wrong, you're going to tell me in about 5 seconds here, is James Wilder, the running back.
Yeah, so this is a tough one for me because I wasn't watching him live. I've only seen like highlights of his game and his career. But in these situations, when you're talking about players that played a long time ago, I think overall longevity and kind of what he did while playing for your franchise are pretty important. And if I'm not mistaken, he holds a fair amount of Buccaneers records as far as like running backs go.
Yeah, he's still the leading rusher in franchise history.
Yeah, so
think about that.
It's tough to, and I get it, it's more of a passing league now, but it's a little tough to have a guy that's been your leading rusher for several years now. Like it's not like he was the leading rusher for 2 seasons and then record got broken. It's been standing like that for quite a while now. Again, kind of like what I said earlier, it closes the chapter on the creamsicle teams and teams that played before, the Bucs won a Super Bowl, their first Super Bowl during the 2002 season, when they won in 2003, technically, when the year happened. But also his son has been a huge advocate of getting him into the Bucs Ring of Honor. So there is still kind of buzz and conversation about it with his son, asking and trying to promote it as well. So yeah, I'm all for it. I think, like I said before, it closes the chapter on the creamsicle teams. I think with the creamsicle returning, there's even more of a reason. I mean, how cool would it be if they put him or Hardy Nickerson in? And I know Hardy played with both jerseys, but what if you put in James Wilder on the next creamsicle
with Hardy Nickerson,
which we don't know when that creamsicle game is?
Yeah,
I'm all for it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny you say that, Matt, because that is going to be the topic for tomorrow's Pewter Report podcast. Who will the Bucs play in the creamsicle game? When is that game going to take place? has not been revealed by the team yet. And we're inching closer to training camp. I have to think that it's coming soon. We do know that the Buccaneers will be playing, and this is a bit of a shocker, so I want everybody sitting down. If you're driving right now listening to this podcast, please pull over to the side of the road. We don't want you involved in an accident. But the Buccaneers will be starting the season wearing white on white jerseys against the Washington Commanders in week 1. I know. Shocker that they're wearing white on white in September, but it's a fact. The team already said it's going to happen. And the Buccaneers did reveal today that they're having their salute to service day, which means they'll be wearing a little bit of camouflage, like the captains will have a camouflage C on their jersey. That's going to take place during the 49ers game in week 10. But we don't know when the creamsicle game will be. What we do know is the Bucs have done a photo shoot with a lot of the star players, probably for the Jumbotron stuff, right, Matt?
Yep.
To get people fired up and probably to sell tickets, etc. So that's going to be the topic for tomorrow's show. Who will the Bucs play in the creamsicle game? When is that game going to take place? That's at 4:00 on Wednesday.
Yeah, so I don't want to dive into it too much now because that's all for tomorrow's show. But there's like a couple of teams I have in mind where it's like, all right, that would be cool. That would make a lot of sense. Obviously, the Bucs, like last year when they did it with the Lions, having played them, been in the same division, because stupidly the Bucs were in the Central, even though they're not even located anywhere near the Central.
Right.
But nonetheless, it is fun when there are those little tie-ins for sure. And then, we got to find out when they're going to wear hopefully they wear the pewter jerseys this year as well. They wore it once last season. They've worn it every year since 2020. So hope we get to see a pewter jersey as well. Yeah. And I hope the Bucs don't fall into the pattern of, I get why they wear the white jerseys now. Or at the beginning of the season, it's way hotter in Tampa than it is in, December and January. I do like seeing the red jerseys though. I mean, white is a color on every sports team, not just the NFL, like every single team. So, it's a little more personalized when they wear the reds. But anyway, we could save that discussion for tomorrow.
Yep. Sticking and just wrapping up with James Wilder here real quick while we talk about some other players. Always wonder why Wilder didn't go in with the old guard, Paul Gruber, Doug Williams, Jimmy Giles. I think a couple reasons. Number one, first of all, I don't think he's going to get in. I kind of heard that within the organization that there's some reasons why he's not going to get in. So that's unfortunate. I'd love to see there be a reversal on their decision, but I think that he is not a viable candidate to go in. But and it stinks because he had a tremendous season for the Buccaneers. I want to say it was 94, I believe. I'm sorry, 84, and was the leading rusher in terms of attempts that year, like something like 425 carries. It was ridiculous. But James Wilder was, he was kind of like Rachaad White before Rachaad White was around, but a guy that could catch the ball out of the backfield, probably a more of a bruiser in terms of tackle breaker because he was a big running back. Not that Rachaad's small, but Rachaad is a little bit more maybe finesse than James Wilder was. But certainly a guy that, I don't know, to me, it's like you look at all of those records, and Mike Evans has broken some of them in terms of touchdowns and the rookie reception record. There's still a lot of records that James Wilder holds, and I just don't think he's going to get in though. But there's some other guys that I don't think are going to get in either. One of them I've kind of gone on record as saying that I don't think meets my criteria, but my last name is not Glazier, so I don't get a vote in this. And Matt, I'm curious to hear what you have to say. But Gerald McCoy is a player that is a bit of a controversial lightning rod because you look at the 6 Pro Bowls and you're like, oh wow, I mean, he's one of the most decorated Buccaneers of all time. He should go, and he did a lot in the community as well. But for me, I look at it and say every single one of the Ring of Honor members that's up there has been to at least one playoff game. And I know this is a team sport, and as a defensive tackle, you can't do it all. But every single one of the Ring of Honor members has been to at least one playoff game. You can't say that about Gerald McCoy if he goes in. Everybody we've talked about, Hardy Nickerson, Simeon Rice, James Wilder hasn't, but Tom Brady, obviously, those guys have been to playoff games. And in two of those cases, Rice and Brady, they won the Super Bowl. So the other criteria I have is what did you do from a playoff / championship standpoint? And then the second thing is, how did you affect the record book? Pro Bowls are nice, but Matt, I think if we're being legitimately honest here about the Pro Bowl, we know that Levante David has gotten completely screwed in the Pro Bowl voting process. So sometimes when you look at players like Gerald McCoy, you need defensive tackles to go in. I'm not saying Gerald was a bad defensive tackle. I think he was a very good defensive tackle, but he never hit double-digit sacks either as a pass rusher. He had 9.5, which was his career high in one year. There were some years, I believe, he made the Pro Bowl with 6 sacks and 6.5. So I don't know. 6 Pro Bowls, I can see the reasoning behind maybe a candidacy for Gerald McCoy, but I think he's way down the list. I think the people we've mentioned have much stronger cases going in. But I just don't like the fact that he's so far down the sack record book. He's not in the top 5. If he is, he's number 5. I don't have the list in front of me.
He's 4th on the list.
He's 4th. Okay.
So he's got 54 and a half sacks. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's unfair to put all of the he didn't make the playoffs because he was the face of the team. And I feel like plenty of times when things were horrible with the offense or things that were not Gerald McCoy's fault, it would still be Gerald McCoy that would stand up, face the music, and have to answer for all the questions of why the team isn't being successful. So he was the face of the team. Now, sure, you don't want to be the face of the team when you're not winning and you're not making the postseason. I do think there should be a amount of respect and commendability for the fact that he would answer for all the reasons why the team wasn't being successful.
Yeah.
It is tough when he hasn't made the playoffs, but I don't know how much that's on him. I don't think he's a first ballot Ring of Honor member by any means, and I think TBMB 95 also makes a good point. The fact that they immediately gave 93 to Sue the day that he left, the organization said pretty loudly what they ultimately think of Gerald McCoy. Yeah, he's somewhere in between a Ring of Honor member and the Hall of Very Good, because like Cam Brate, I put in the Hall of Very Good, but if I were going to say who was a better just player overall, I'd say Gerald McCoy than Cam Brate. I understand that's apples to oranges. So I would be fine with McCoy getting in, but I think it would have to take a little bit of time and have some more people on the list go in first. He'd kind of get the Hardy Nickerson treatment, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. One thing too, I mean, since we're talking about Ring of Honor, very good, using these terms like that, that I got to throw out there is my own personal physician, Christopher Lugo, at the Bay Area Modern Medical Center. I've been a patient of Chris's now for just about a year. Just sent a couple of good friends. I'm not going to name them because I don't want to get involved in any HIPAA things, but some of you watch this Pewter Report program and have gone to Christopher Lugo. You've reached out to me and said you've had a great experience. And I'm glad to hear that because I rave about this guy, and not just because he's an advertiser with Pewter Report. I go to see Christopher Lugo for a couple of reasons. Number one, my personal physician in terms of treating me when I'm sick and not well. And thankfully, I've been very well. And I think a lot of it has to do with being a patient of Christopher Lugo. The other thing is I'm on testosterone. I'm 52 years old. I had low T. And I have enough energy now to get me through the day without having to go to a second Celsius. Not knocking Celsius, but I liked it better when I could just drink one and not need two. And the other thing too is I work out in the gym, and I feel like I'm in great shape. I feel like I'm 42, not 52. So if you are tired of being just another number in a waiting room, visit Bay Area Modern Medical Center in Tampa, because Chris believes that you deserve personalized care that puts you and your health and your well-being first. Christopher Lugo's got over 24 years of medical expertise as a primary care provider. He's dedicated to your overall health. But if you want some help when it comes to weight loss, anti-aging, hormone replacement therapy like testosterone, Christopher Lugo is the place to go. Bay Area Modern Medical Center. So listen up, men. Testosterone treatments can be very affordable, as I found out. Don't let old age slow you down. Reclaim your vitality and get back to feeling great. Turn back the clock with the consultation at Bay Area Modern Medical Center today. Here's the thing, too. You don't have to be in the Tampa area. I just spent the weekend with my college roommates at the Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri, and both of my roommates wanted to go see Dr. Lugo now. And you can do that because he offers telemed appointments, telehealth appointments for outside of the Tampa Bay area. So you don't have to be in the Tampa Bay area to get treated for testosterone or anything else. So you can log on anywhere across the country and you can receive the primary care or the weight loss or the testosterone treatment that you deserve from Christopher Lugo. Visit BAMMC.com, BAMMC.com. The last thing I'll say is same-day appointments are available for your convenience. So all you have to do is go on the website and schedule your appointment, BAMMC.com, or give Chris a call at 844-789-2266. Cannot recommend Bay Area Modern Medical Center enough. That's where your health is the top priority.
Scott, there's three other players. One I think is definitely in. Two are probably more Hall of very good, but I'd be interested to see if Pewter people will make a case. Ali Marpet is someone we haven't spoken about too much when it comes to being in the Bucs Ring of Honor. And that's probably because he's an offensive lineman, and it's way more difficult to quantify why he should be in, especially because Ali Marpet fell victim to the Bucs not being successful for a majority of his career until they finally won the Super Bowl in 2020. He doesn't really have many individual accolades either. I think he made one Pro Bowl. Yeah, he made one Pro Bowl. Yeah. But like everybody in Tampa Bay knows how important Ali Marpet was to the Bucs offensive line and as a leader while he was with Tampa Bay. And I think that's why when he eventually retired, it came as such a shock because he was playing at such a high level that you thought, all right, the Bucs still have him for the next 3 or 4 seasons.
I think you're right. The only problem I would have with Marpet, and I think he was a better player than Tony Mayberry, but I'm an old school guy. Tony Mayberry, before Tristan Wirfs, was the most decorated offensive lineman in franchise history, even more than Paul Gruber, who never made a Pro Bowl, got snubbed. Again, because he played on bad Buccaneer teams with the Buccaneers back then. But Gruber was the best offensive lineman in team history. Mayberry was the second best at the time. Now, it's Tristan Wirfs is the number one guy. There's no doubt about it, right? But Mayberry, with 3 Pro Bowl selections from 97, 98, and 99, that was his last season. He retired after that. And you've heard that famous phrase from Gene Deckerhoff on recordings, because he doesn't say it anymore. Oh, start up the gut, And up the gut means right behind Tony Mayberry. So Mayberry was a big-time catalyst, played alongside Gruber for about half of his career. And, I think that he, with the 3 Pro Bowls, I think that's the logjam for me is Mayberry was really, really good. Marpet, from a talent standpoint, probably slightly better. And he also won a Super Bowl. So I think both those guys are kind of in the hall of very good, because I kind of see him on the same level to a degree. I think if you put Mayberry on a slightly better football team, I think he wins the Super Bowl with the Buccaneers. They almost won it in 99. They should have won it in 99. Right. It just didn't happen.
No, those are all good points. I think it's more food for thought at this point with guys like Ali Marpet. And the next 2 players I'm going to mention, they play the same position, and they were teammates and played together. Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett. So JPP, I'll start with. I think Shaq has a better case. But JPP, what I would say is I know he came a little bit earlier than, Brady and really the big turnaround in 2020. But I think there's an argument to be made that JPP was one of the first dominoes to fall in terms of moves that were made to really set the Bucs up to try to be successful and eventually be a contender outside of drafting players. Because obviously, that's the best way to build a team. But when they traded for Jason Pierre-Paul, I still remember being like, all right, the Bucs, they got a pass rusher. And then he went on to get double-digit sacks, and he was the first edge rusher to record at least 10 sacks in a season, I believe, since Simeon Rice.
That's right.
When he got to the Buccaneers. So I think that was important, trading for JPP. Probably not in the Bucs Ring of Honor, but when I said the Hall very good, when I mentioned guys like Cam Brate, I think Will Golson's in that category, even though he's still playing when I say Hall of Very Good, there's obviously not like a section of it in the stadium or anything like that. But just, if they end up going to a Bucs game whenever, put him on the Jumbotron, let everybody give him a standing ovation. That's what I mean by like the Hall of Very Good. I think that's the least Bucs fans could do. And then Shaq Barrett, I mean, obviously his 2019 season was arguably the best defensive season in Bucs history, at least getting to the quarterback it was. An unreal year. Obviously, him and JPP so important to winning that Super Bowl in 2020. I think that's one of when people think about the Bucs actually beating the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, it'll of course be Brady to Gronk, Brady to AB, but a lot of that too is Shaq Barrett and JPP.
No, you're right.
Patrick Mahomes run for his life.
Yeah, here's why I like Shaq more than JPP. Again, it goes to a couple things. Did you win? Yeah, they're both on the same team that won 13 games in 2021 and won a Super Bowl the year before. What about the personal accolades? Yeah, he made a couple Pro Bowls and all of that, but he also had the distinction of being a franchise player. The Bucs just don't throw that franchise tag out every year, and they don't do it for just chump players. They do it for the best of the best. So he has that distinction going for him. I think the other thing too is the record book. Did he set records in Tampa? Was he the best of the best for at least a year or so? Yeah, he was. He set he broke Sapp's record for the most sacks in a season. Yeah. And I think that's huge. So I would say Shaq Barrett, because of that criteria, inches up a little bit higher than I think JPP does. And I think probably even more so than Ali Marpet or Tony Mayberry, just because, offensive linemen, it's hard to quantify, right? They don't have those individual stats and all that. So, but I will say this, Shaq Barrett made an awful lot of money in Tampa. And whether you have a lot of money or maybe like me, you have a little money, the place to go when you want to invest that for your retirement or for your savings for college, for your kids, wherever, is Immuni Financial.
At Muni Financial, we help you live in the now.
Dude, congratulations. We're so happy for you.
Thank you. And even though the now may feel very different, you still need to plan for the future.
How's retirement treating you?
Oh, just fantastic.
I know I say it all the time, but you really got to come up to Colorado.
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
We can help you develop that plan to keep you on track so you can still prepare for tomorrow, today. Muni Financial. Plan ahead, stay ahead.
Managing your family's wealth means more to Muni Financial than simply just allocating your assets. It means legacy planning, brokerage and advisory services, retirement accounts, college savings accounts, and insurance services. With 40 years of experience, let Muni Financial help you plan ahead and stay ahead. Call Muni Financial at 1-800-868-6864 or visit them on the web at immuni.com.
And after you're done checking out Immuni Financial, please make sure you're following us on all of our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram at Pewter Report. And our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe to the podcast. To our YouTube channel too. Leave a comment as well at the bottom. Tomorrow's show, we will be talking about the creamsicle. Who will the Bucs play in the creamsicle game? Can we predict when it will happen? And are you a fan of the creamsicle jersey? Where does the creamsicle jersey rank amongst the other throwback jerseys in the NFL? That'll be another discussion as well. So we got that going on tomorrow. One more reminder to follow us on all of our social media, and that's going to do it for us on today's show. For Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.